Welcome. On this channel, I do like to try and bring a little bit of grounding into spiritual concepts because I think sometimes they can be a little bit inaccessible when really they shouldn't be. They should be accessible to all, and we should be really working with these spiritual teachings that we hear to bring about change, positive change in ourselves and the world around us. So with that in mind, I want to talk about New Earth today, and especially New Earth from my own perspective of being on the Magdalene path and the teachings in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, because those teachings do after all tell us that we are fully human and fully divine. So New Earth can be traced back where it is directly mentioned to the Bible. It's mentioned in the Old Testament and the New Testament, and it's described in detail in Revelation chapter 20 as a physical place, a city made of gold and precious stones or crystals. And in this version of what New Earth is, it's a place where the righteous will go and live side by side with God, and there's only lightness, no darkness can enter. And you might have heard of the 144,000 that some people now speak of as actually a frequency, not a number of people, but it's linked to that as well, that it's like the 144,000 will go into New Earth. And over the years, we've started to get a different understanding of the Bible, and we realize that, these ancient scriptures and teachings are often allegories or metaphors to help us understand complex spiritual topics that have perhaps unfortunately been taken literally when they ought not to have been. So we have work like the New Thought movement, the New Age movement, Dolores Cannon's work, Eckhart Tolle, and they have really brought this understanding that New Earth is not a physical place. It's not a real physical city in the sky that people will ascend to, that it's actually a place already within us. And of course, in the teachings of the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, this is exactly what we hear, that it's up to us to do the inner work on ourselves so that we can bring out our core soul selves that are really rooted in compassion and love, and that will bring about a more harmonious world for everyone to live in. So the crystalline and gold structure of New Earth really represent our stability and incorruptibility to what might be called 3D influences. So just everyday life, rushing to get the kids ready, having a boss that doesn't listen to you, struggles with your relationship, money worries, health worries, all those kinds of things. We really, when we come into alignment and we start living life in a way that is in flow with who we truly are, we start to see those kinds of struggles, we deal with them better, and eventually over time we can approach them in a practical way to overcome them as well. And living side by side with God in the city really just means that we remember our own divinity. Whether you see it as being a child of the divine, a shard, a fractal of the divine, that we're made of star stuff, as Carl Sagan would say, literally we have the universe within us. And that's what living side by side with God means. And for some people, it might be disappointing to hear, well, this isn't a real place that at some point eventually you're just going to get sent to, and you have work to do to get there. But actually I find it very exciting and very liberating, because it means that we are in control of that. We can bring about a better world through ourselves, starting right now, starting today. We get to be the artists who paint the life and the world we want on our own canvas. And we can do that in so many different ways. Of course, there's conventional healing, having therapy, really working on the things that we know are causing us to act in detrimental ways to ourselves and others. We can also engage in more holistic therapies using crystals, sound healing, Reiki, EFT tapping, all of these things, being in ceremony, in ritual that brings us closer to the divine, and also just quiet, practicing presence, really being quiet and getting in touch with the core of who we are. All of these modalities help us to shut off the distractions of the world around us, if just for a moment, and remember our divine nature. And remember that there is a different way that we can walk in the world, and it raises our vibration, it raises our energy. You know yourself that when you come out of something like a sound bath, you just feel like you're elevated, you're just buzzing, and you're more likely to be kind to other people, to hold the door open, to do something randomly nice for a stranger, because you're just buzzing with that love and compassion. And if we could hold that vibration, imagine what the world would be like. And that's what we seek to do on this Magdalene path, is to engage with those things that help us to heal our wounds, very real wounds that we have, and that help to keep our vibe high as well. And when we're doing this healing work, especially when we're looking at difficult memories, difficult relationships, when we're looking at our own shadows, the ways that we walk in the world that maybe do hurt other people, maybe we let people down, maybe we're not the best partner we could be, maybe sometimes we don't feel like we're the best parent we could be. When we're looking at those things, it can be really scary and really difficult, and difficult emotions can come up. But that's why we have our relationship with the divine that can really hold us and support us in doing that work. But knowing that our bodies were made to feel those emotions, we have the capacity to feel it all: anger, joy, jealousy, rage, ecstasy, compassion. And the fact that we can feel those emotions, our bodies can also process them. And it's not about running away from them. It's about learning to hold those emotions and say, what are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to tell me? And getting the message and saying, okay, noted. And now I'm going to let you move through me and go. And come back to that lesson when you feel more emotionally stable, to really start working on that. And when we do this healing work, that's when we raise the consciousness. We raise our consciousness and we go out into the world with more love and compassion, and hopefully we raise others in that love and compassion as well. Because it is from inside of us that the world outside of us comes into being. First, it's through our thoughts, our feelings, and then we speak those thoughts and feelings, and then we act in accordance. So if you're in fear, you'll speak about what you're afraid of, and you'll act in ways to try and avoid that fear. But a lot of the time that fear is not founded. It's fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear that we're not good enough. But often those are just scripts that we tell ourselves that are based in old memories, and they're not true. And when we realize that and we really start working with that idea, there's this exercise that I like to do where we can imagine that everyone on the earth, we are all the same person. So everyone is just you having a different experience. So if you were born a millisecond later in a different part of the world, who would you be? And you can start then to really look at other people's behavior and say, what would make me behave like that? And initially you'd be like, well, I wouldn't. I would never hurt somebody, so I would never do that. But this is an exercise in going deeper. So it's saying, okay, I would never, but what circumstances might have to happen in my life to make me do that? So perhaps somebody grew up around a lot of violence, or they had violence perpetuated on them as a child. And so it's the only way they know how to get their point across. It's the only way they know to feel safe. And so we really start to see that everyone's actions usually go back to something in their life that made them feel unworthy, unsafe. And it's not about excusing those actions. It's not about doing that. It's about understanding where those actions might be coming from, so that we can choose how and if we are going to let that affect us inwardly. And how are we going to respond? Are we going to meet conflict with conflict? Or are we going to try and understand and help people to heal? Or are we just going to point the finger? Quite often that happens, where people who act in ways that we could never imagine acting, they're not doing that because it's fun for them. They're doing it because of some wounding that's going on. And it's really about understanding that and figuring out how we can stop that perpetuation, that cycle, in children especially, of growing up in these environments that cause them to feel unsafe. And that's the work that we do. It's that difficult work of looking at someone that we think is very other and saying, how can I meet you with compassion in the most difficult of circumstances? And again, compassion is not about condoning. It's not about saying that that action is okay. It's about understanding it and helping it to heal. So when we're trying to keep our vibe high, but we can see everything that's going on in the world that's so difficult to look at, and then the sort of smaller first world problems where we can look at people on social media and compare ourselves to them. How do we really keep ourselves on this path? Something that I like to do every so often is just have a period of time, a week or two, where I do not go on social media. I do not watch television or films. All I do is spend time in nature and reading or doing something like a skill. So crocheting is something that I like to do. Not well, but I like to do it. And it's really things that are very simple, that are not coming from outside of me, especially that relationship with nature and animals, because although nature and animals can be and are abused by the system that we live in, they can never really be corrupted at the heart. They are so pure. They are the divine incarnate walking among us without all the hang-ups that we have, right? We are the divine incarnate, but we have all these egoic hang-ups. Nature and animals and small children don't have that. So I really like to step away momentarily and just come to center and concentrate on that relationship with the divine inside me. So sitting in meditation, silent meditation, really listening, and if nothing comes, accepting that, but just sitting in silence and peace and stillness. And then only engaging with things that are uplifting or that further my understanding of my own spiritual path. So reading books about spiritual teachings or practicing skills that I enjoy just for myself, and keep doing that healing work. So, whether it is conventional therapy or crystal healing, Reiki, whatever it is, keep doing those healing modalities, but recognizing when maybe something just isn't working for you. I've discussed in another video about the rose path that, quite often we can engage in a lot of different things and we're chasing some kind of comfort, some kind of knowledge, some place we'll get to where we'll finally feel whole. And we might chase after that through all different kind of healing modalities, but recognizing when maybe it's about just taking a step back sometimes and concentrating on that relationship with the divine first to give us that foundation to start to heal from. And that is how we can bring about new earth. And it's very clear in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene that it really is about that inner work that we then bring out when we do the healing work on ourselves, so that we can pour more compassion, more understanding. We can walk in integrity and authenticity in the world, and we then spread that out among other people. That's really what it's about. So I hope this has helped with your understanding of New Earth, or given you a deeper perspective, or maybe it's the first time you've heard of New Earth. And it can be a struggle to try and bring about change in the world, but we're not alone. We're in it together, and day by day, by keeping doing this work, we get there a little bit each day. Thank you so much for being with me today. I hope that was illuminating for you. Many blessings.